Chapter 2, The Hair Hung. One day, I walked into the living room and saw Sherlock Holmes was deep in conversation with a man stout stature, rosy countenance, sandy hair red as Louis. Toy apologize for the sudden and are to turn out, it was Sherlock Holmes. Pull me in, then closed the door. My dear Watson, he came at the right time, he said. I'm afraid I'm busy. Yes, very busy behind the other. So let me into the next room waiting for him. It is okay. Dear Mr. Wilson, Dr. Watson is a partner and a supporter of me in many cases, the most successful. I believe in this case that would be very helpful. Tubby little man jumped to his feet, nodded, glanced small eyes look at me, looks scrutiny. Dear Watson, Sherlock Holmes says, I know he used to share with me the passion all that mysterious, and contrary to common sense. Here, he Jabez Wilson, strangest thing I've ever heard in recent months. Mr. Wilson, in my opinion, he should kindly told from the beginning. I ask so not just because Doctors Watson, my friend, not listen to the first part, but also because of this strange story made me eager to listen carefully to all the circumstances. Normally, just listen to a few facts that I think of the thousands of similar cases that I remember. But with this, I was forced to admit that many fruits are incomparable. He pulled from the pocket of customer's robe wearing a stained paper, crumpled. Bent over, as he stared into advertisements published in newspapers spread on the thigh. This, he said as he thumbed shark round, ruddy, only on the lower section located between advertising columns. The whole story from the very beginning of this piece here. Could you get, the more self-reading? I pick up the newspaper, then recite. Association of the Carousel. According to the will, which he Ezekiah Hopkins in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, U.S.A. bequeathed this time, council members to recruit a leisurely do a job with a salary of £4/week, deducted from his assets. People with red hair and fitness, mental well, over 21, are able to apply. Please send your application from Mr. Duncan Ross, on Monday morning, at 11 o'clock, at the board office, 7 Pope's Court, Fleet Street, London. What the hell is this? I cried after reading it again twice. That quirky ads. Sherlock Holmes smiled. It is quite odd, is not it? I said. Now, Mr. Wilson, asked him to talk about himself, his family situation and the impression this advertisement for his cause. Well, as I have also told him that, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, Jabez Wilson said. I have a small pawn shop, at Coburg Square, near City. My job did not eat anything for very superficial world, and only recently subsistence profits. Before I could hire 2 assistants, but now only dared to hire a difficult and also pay salaries to people, unless he please enjoy half the usual salary, deemed to have the opportunity acquainted with the work here. The guy was eager. What is the name? Sherlock Holmes asked. His name is Vincent Spaulding. He's not young anymore. His age is difficult. He's a fast worker, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, and I knew he easily earns a better job this much higher wages than double the wages that I pay now. But ultimately, he has received, and if he shows by heart, then what I would suggest to him that he had suffered he anyway. Yeah, it's no use. See the good results of the search. He was a sub as his hands. Sure, he is also the add attention to this. Oh, he also has the drawback that, Mr. Wilson said. I've never met a guy who loved photos like this. Highly inspired, everyone is shooting furiously, then quick as a rabbit slip down the cellar in the depot. Coded printing photos take them. That was his major drawback. On average, he is also a job. I see nothing worth complaining. I guess, maybe now he still makes his? Yes sir. He was with a girl 14 years old, just take care of the cooking and cleaning. In addition to my house no one, because I'm not the wife, had no children. The three of us live very quietly, sir, until it all began overturning since I read this ad. One day, it happened more than 8 weeks ago, Spalding entered the shop with a newspaper in his hand, and said, "I wish I was blessed with a red hair, Mr. Wilson sir." "What happened?" I ask. "Wyatt. Welding." He read every piece of the recruitment notice here, hair hung clearly engraved. "Who luck to make will earn a small fortune, but no joke. I'm sure they with more members than the number of people applying to the assembly. Just change the color of my hair, I will be ready to apply for right of association, because this is a job I feel so leisurely." "Why, what do you mean?" I regret. "Mr. Sherlock Holmes, you see, because of my job I have not started running around looking for customers, so sometimes for several weeks, I did not step foot out of the house. So I do not know much about what goes on around, so never I also eager to hear stories of novelty." "So he has never heard of Herr Hung Hoi yet?" he asked me. "Never." "Oh, he was the one who could win his one vacancy there. So they can earn how much?" I ask. "Well, every year only a few £100, but the job is very leisurely, and besides not affect too much the things they're doing." Yes, he who made me listen pricked up his ears. "A few years ago, my job is not better off eating much, so chances are a few £100 more for very attractive results." "Hey, tell me what all he knows about the society and that." I told him. "Yes," he replied, and offered to show me the other ads, as he himself saw it, was with a seat assembly. They have great visible sign, that he was able to ask for more. As I understand it, this conference by Ikea Hopkins, an American millionaire streak very different people, set up. His flaming red hair, so he was very sympathetic to all who have the same color hair. Therefore, after the loss, he has left a hefty account to create jobs for those leisurely with his hair the same color. I heard many rumors that the post-amnesty which work pretty hard to not do much. But, I said, some clever carousel applicant up to the millions. Not as much as he might think, he said. As he sees it, the only people who receive London. He millionaire born in London, this capital, and lived there as a young man, should want to do something nice for the city where they grew. Moreover, I have heard, the association does not cater for anyone with that pale blondes, dark assault, or any color yet, but only for people who have a true hair, colored reddish, glowing like silk. Mr. Wilson, if you want to enter the unit, he should come now. But watch out, sure, he did not even bother just to earn a few £100. But surely you see that he, indeed my hair reddish color with all the nuances that require other advertisements. I wonder if the right candidate feel I will have more chances than anyone I ever met." Vincent Spalding seemed to know much about this. More than what I can expect from him, so I immediately ordered him to close the shop, and we immediately hit the road, looking to the address stated in the advertisements there. "Mr. Holmes, I hope never to have to witness again such scenes. From 4 directions east, west, south, north, all those who have hair hung with all shades are flocking to city to compete for the vacancy advertisements posted on the other. I cannot imagine that the UK country to all those who have eagerly flock here just because the other silly commercials. Their hair color alone is enough of all shades, but as Spalding said, some people have red hair, fiery truth, not much fruit. When you see all these people have to wait, I attempted to give up. But Spalding did not listen. He rubs shoulders like wings until the spleen is the last time the crowd, and we booked the foot of the stairs leading up to the office. In the office I did not see much furnished, apart from a few wooden chairs and a table. It was a man sitting in baby range red shank, red hair color longer than my hair. He spoke briefly some questions with each candidate, and then with everyone trying to find some defect or something to deny. Captured the vacancy, which seemed not so easy. But when it was my turn, the other guy Red Shank series expressed satisfaction over anyone else. He closed the door as soon as we walked in, to be able to have a private conversation with the two of us. "This is Mr. Jabez Wilson," Spaulding said. "He came in for the positions for which it is hiring vacancy." "He's very deserving," the other guy said. "A long time ago, I have not seen any great hair like this." He took a step back, head tilted, watching my hair. Then suddenly leaned forward, gripped my hand. "I matriculated, celebrate." "Nothing to wonder anymore," he said. "But to be sure, please forgive him, I have to be very careful to prevent." Speak not finished speaking, he used both hands, grabbed my hair to snatch, jerk until I filled with tears. "He tears, behold," he said as he let go. "I think that everything went well. But we must be careful, because we have been cheated twice, once for wigs, hair dyes, once thin." He went to the window and loudly tell the crowd that had found appropriate candidates. Voice and cried almost rubbed frustration from below the expectations up, and people continue to leave the continent, spread out several variables. So far not found any hair hung except my hair, and the guy hung care of the selection of candidates. "My name is Duncan Ross," he said. "When will he be able to embark on the job?" "Well, one thing, I was a little disadvantaged to discuss business at home," I replied. "Oh, Mr. Wilson, he do not worry," Vincent Spaulding said. "I can replace him custodians." "I have to work at what times?" I ask. "From 10 am to 2 pm. Now, Mr. Holmes, my pawn shop working mainly in the afternoon and evening, so I see no inconvenience at all, if you are a little more for the morning. Also, I know my hands are assisting trustworthy, and he could replace me, manage things when needed. So very convenient for me," I said. "And the remuneration?" "4 table each week." "The job?" "Very leisurely." "He wants to mean when called leisurely?" "Well, he must be present in the office daily, or at least in this building, in all that time. If left out, he will lose their jobs." Testaments specifying this point. Every day, it only took about 4 hours out of the office. "Not sure I'd done all right," I said. "We never tolerated for any reason," Mr. Duncan Ross said, "both sick and busy work, or any other excuse. He either had to stay, or will lose their jobs. So what do I do? Capture the Encyclopedia UK1. This is said I starting tomorrow onwards. He ready?" "Of course," I answered. "So, bye, Mr. Jabez Wilson." Once again congratulations to him. "I'm the same guy," Maid returned, not knowing what to say or do anything further. "I am very glad for finding a lucrative job." Well, it made me crooked start quietly happy all day, but by the afternoon, there was a concern. I convinced myself that the whole thing was a joke, although in fact it was. I could not imagine. It is hard to believe that the world can do that, leaves a testament weird like that, and take a lot of money spent just to hire such a service as simple as copying the entire Encyclopedia England. However, the next morning I decided to see firsthand how they can, so I set off for Pope's Court. I was shocked and was excited because it happened very nice, incredible. They list a table available to me, and I'm sitting there watching Duncan Ross started to work out why. He told me to copy from A, then moments later departed, leaving me sitting copy. but every now and then to see my work turned into a star. Exactly 2 hours he compliments I've copied a lot, then goodbye to me, walked me out the door, then locked the office door as soon as I go out. Mr. Holmes, it goes on from day to day, and to Saturday he came in, handed me 4 copper gold sovereigns to pay for the work I did last week. Next week things are happening as the first week and again next week as well. Every morning I was at the right time and place for 10 hours at 2 o'clock. More later, as Duncan Ross came to him slowly, only once in the morning, and a little later, did not see coming again. However, of course, I would never dare leave the room even for a minute. How do I know for sure is when the man appeared. Moreover, the work is leisurely, with my hobby, so I do not want to risk being dismissed. 8 weeks have passed, so I copied and the paper was filled half the room bookshelf. But then suddenly the whole work ends. Finish? Yes, sir. That just this morning alone. I went to work as usual at 10 o'clock, but found the door locked and the center can attach a small piece of notification, squares, written on cardboard. He informed this piece, he can read. Then he held out a piece of client white cover, the size of a notebook page, right only had a few words. Association of Reddish Hair Dissolution October 9, 1890. Holmes and I admire pieces of notification and rueful faces looming after the other until piece cover aspects of this humor that both laughed. I do not see anything funny about it, he's our client exclaimed, face flushed bright red hair make. If you cannot do him nothing but ridicule me, I go ask someone else right here. Oh, no, no, Holmes cried. I really do not want to ignore the case, whether to lose anything. However, he omitted to say, the fruit it's something funny, do when he saw the cover pieces attached on the door? I do not know what to do. I inquired to the nearby office of the building, but no one knew anything about the other assembly. Eventually, I met the boss, had to find housing on the ground floor, asked if he could tell me what had happened to the other non-red hair society. He replied that no. Never heard of it. Then I asked Mr. Duncan Ross was. He said the new names he heard for the first time. Yes, I said, that's the one he rented the room number 4. Well, blonde's red guy, right? Yes. Oh, he continued, his name was William Morris the other. He just rented the room for some time while waiting for me to find a new place to put his office. He has moved out yesterday. So where to find him? Well, in his new office. I knew he had to address it. Well, here it is, number 17, King Edward Street, next to the Chapel of St. Paul. I am to the scene, Mr. Holmes, find Holmes by address, but no one heard the name William Morris and Duncan Ross name. Then he has to do anything else? Holmes asked. I returned to Coburg Square, asked him to help the star should count, but he did not think were possible way to help me. Just tell me is so hard to wait for the mail correspondence. But like I found no peace of mind, Mr. Holmes. I do not want to lose their jobs, but did not do anything, just stood back, waiting. I heard he was very kind, willing to help those suffering to her for help, should have come to him immediately. Mr. responds so wise, Holmes said. His service is remarkable, and I am very happy to be invited to deal with. From what he has told, I think this is definitely a more serious case than the idea that it is possible to glance. Yes, it's serious. Mr. Jabez Wilson. Do not stop. I lost £4 a week. Particularly on his part, Holmes commented, I saw he had nothing to blame, the other associations both odd. In contrast, as far as I know, he was about 30, earn extra tables and collect much less profound knowledge of all the entries are written in rhyme a. He did not lose anything. Oh, no, sir. But I also want to track down the whereabouts of them, see who they are, and they play with me for what purpose, if it was a joke. A rather expensive joke for them, because they have to pay the £32. We will try to clarify the points you have just mentioned. But first, I want to ask you some questions, Mr. Wilson. He dominated his work, the first to note the advertisements he worked for how long? About a month previously. He came with him like? According to an advertisement in the newspaper for me. He alone, or are there more to someone else? No, there are about a dozen employers attended. Why did you choose him? Because he was aggressive and did not require much. Really, only requires half the salary, right? Yes. General appearance, how the guy was Vincent Spaulding? Low fat, very agile, no beard, but the age of about 30. Has a scar on his forehead and white. Holmes sat up, excitedly. I guess so. He said, on his earlobe holes he had found 2 gold earrings, no? Yes, sir. He told me a gypsy she was pierced for him when he was young. Okay, Mr. Wilson. A few more days, I will be very happy, let him know the outcome of this case. Today is Saturday, I hope to Monday we will have concluded. When his client was leaving, Holmes, who immediately collected in an armchair, his knees nearly touching noses spindly. He sat in that position for a long moment, his eyes half closed, the black pipe with calcination league front overhang, reminiscent of a bird-like beak, strange. I thought he fell asleep, then suddenly he jumped up, posture, as if someone has come up with a decision, and placed the pipe on the furnace. This afternoon a concert in St. James's Hall. He exclaimed. What do you think, Watson? His patience can please you in a few hours to spare it. Today I had nothing to do. My work never made me hard all day in the clinic. Then you're wearing a hat on, and then we go. First, I have to go to Park City. Then, on the way, we can look at a certain shop for dinner. Come on, let's get going. We meet until Aldersgate subway, and walking distance to Coburg Square, where the bizarre story that we just heard that morning. A broken brown signboards, who the word Jabez Wilson in white paint, hanging in the corner said it was his practice premises, clients are reddish hair. Holmes stopped just in front of the shop, watching everything, tilted his head, eyes glaring light. Then he slowly pacing along the way, then round down to the corner, his eyes intently watching each house. Finally, he turned to the shop. He used the first 2 or 3 times sticks pounded down the sidewalk, and then go straight to the shop before knocking. Now the door opened and in the doorway appeared a bright boy, spoke face solicitations. Thanks, Holmes said. I just want to ask for help, only way to Strand. By the 3rd junction turn right, to the intersection, then turn left. Wednesday, assisting his fellow Wilson has said, just shut the door. What a sly guy, Holmes commented when we go out. In my judgment, he is a sly hand, ranks 4th in London, and probably the 3rd largest in terms of risk. I knew little more about him. Obviously, assisting his fellow Wilson has played a significant role in the mysterious business dealings of the Hungarian heir, I say. I am sure that you ask for directions, just an excuse to see his face. No, it is not. So you want to see? Pipes his pants where his knees. What you see is what? Seeing what I expected of him. Then why did you knock club head down the sidewalk? My dear doctor, this is the time to observe, not to chat. I have learned little more about Coburg Square. Now we are looking for the corner lies behind it. The road that we had just arrived after going round the corner of the square. Coburg Square is one of the main traffic axes connecting the two parts of Zone City, North and West's romantic capital city. It is difficult to imagine the rows of shops and offices that we are. Magnificent sight to see is the back of the gloomy advertising that we had just visited. Let me watch a little offline, Holmes said as he paused and looked around the corner along the road. I want to remember the order of the buildings there. Learn thorough London is one of my hobbies. First Mortimer Tobacco Shop, a newsstand. Next is Small, then the bank's branch Coburg City and the surrounding region. This place lots of food straight to the other side. Watson, so we've done. Now we are entitled to relax your mind for a moment. A folded sandwich, a cup of coffee, and then we come to the concert, where such a body hair hung all that could disturb us with crazy incident. Your passionate music, for he who was playing music and also a talented musician. During that afternoon, he sat in the concert hall, enjoy a happiness peak and slightly beat rhythm with long spindly fingers follow the rhythm to be heard. Maybe he wants to go now, right doctor? Holmes said as we both left the concert hall. Well, I want to go. As for me, I have to finish some work, take a few hours. Coburg Square service is a serious case. Really? This is a crime with plotting scale before. I have every reason to believe we are too late to stop. I hope you please help me tonight. What time? From 10 p.m. is moderate. Watson sir, this is dangerous, so please. He pocketed his army pistol. Holmes waved goodbye, then turned right and disappeared in the crowd. I've always been obsessed with the idea that they really collaborate with Sherlock Holmes. I also hear what you hear and see clearly what he saw. But through his words I understood that he did not just see what happened, but also to predict what's coming, while the eyes of the entire interior I was still a mess. That night, just set foot in the Holmes room, I found him lively conversation with two people, but then I realized it is Peter Jones, a police detective. And the other tall, thin, sad face, wearing a shiny hat. Both sides would be enough then, Holmes said as he buttoned jacket, then reached down to grab the stick. Heavy price down, UK Watson, I guess he knew Jones, behind Scotland Yard? So just like to introduce to you, this is Mr. Merriweather, a partner. We are in tonight's adventure. With him, Merriweather, deposit money in the game tonight is £30,000. As for you, Mr. Jones, that would be the guy that has long range. He still wished nab. Yes, that's John Clay, the murderer cum theft. He was young, Merriweather sir, but the hands are stunned in the profession. I want to catch him than any criminal in London yet. A remarkable staff, the guy was young John Clay. That man also mischievous as his hands so although we have found him leaving traces everywhere, we still do not know where to find him. I've watched him for years, but had never seen him firsthand. Hopefully tonight I'll be able to have the pleasure to introduce him to his tweak. I also have a part-time seeing the feats of this guy John Clay, and I totally agree with him that he was a high-hand side of the profession. But behold, it was more than 10 hours, one must hit the road alone. If the two men started up the car, then Watson and I will follow in the second car. Over the long haul, Holmes said little. Our car rolled down the endless streets until the streets Farringdon. Coming to the place then, you're saying? And the other Merriweather is a bank director, and related directly to this case. I think Jones is also very necessary for us. I come down here alone, they're waiting for us over there. We set foot in the capital of the busiest road segment that we arrived in the morning. Following Merryweather, the three of us crossed a narrow alley, and then in a side already open door to welcome us, to go into the house. Outside the door is a strip of short corridor, leading directly to a massive iron gate. The gate is already open, and we marched on the twisting stone staircase, leading to a massive gate anymore. Mr. Merryweather stopped, lit the lamp, then led us down a dark path, smelled of damp earth, and then he opened the doors next Tuesday, taking us down a very wide tunnel house. Around, we saw rows of wooden crates piled and big boxes. From above he is safe, Holmes has remarked, has raised lanterns, looking around. Both from the bottom, too, he said as he tapped Merryweather Club head down on the stone floor. Oh, so this sounds like empty. He looked up, astonished exclaimed. I had to ask him to say a little smaller, said Holmes sternly. Otherwise we run the risk of not gaining anything in this adventure. Please messers, please sit down there, and crates do not interfere in my work. Mr. Merryweather sat right down a wooden crate, looking very displeased. Holmes knelt down on the floor and used the lantern began to consider carefully each interstitial ice. Just a few minutes later he was satisfied. Now because I think that he has stood up. We have to wait at least an hour, he said, because they're hard to do before he sleeps. Pawnshop owner. Now, we will not miss taking a minute, because the job done as soon, we will more and more time to flee. Watson, surely he has to guess now, we're in the basement branch city of one of the major banks in London. Mr. Merryweather is the chairman board of directors. He will explain to him clearly that this time the most daring criminals of London there are reasons to care this much about the house cellar. We currently stored in this whole France that bank gold loans are. Mr. Director whispered. Gold France of him? Yes. A few months ago we have borrowed from the Bank of France a gold worth £30,000. Everybody knows that we've never popped out of his gold, and until now there are still a few barrels of gold stays here in this basement. I'm sitting this crate containing some gold worth £2,000. Means a lot more than normal in an office of a small branch, and the directors our members already have doubts about this. They suspect is a must, Holmes remarks, and now it's time we have to contemplate what to do to complete our one small plan. I hope in about an hour, everything will end. During that time, Merryweather sir, we have to cover the temporary lights. So you have to sit in the dark? I'm afraid I had to like that. I think that our opponents have prepared very carefully. I will not be reckless to let us see this as light. First and foremost, we have to select for each one position to the hand. These guys are so brazen, so we have more advantages. They can harm us, if we are not careful. I will stand nestled behind this crate, while he just hiding behind those of the other. When am I going light on them, for him to quickly catch them? If they fire, then Watson, he just shot down them. They only have one way out, Holmes said softly, it's back to the house on Coburg Square. Mr. Jones, I sure hope he did exactly what I asked for. Maximum 1 inspector and 2 police ambush pawnshop at the front door. So we have blocked all the exits and hours, just waiting for them to sit still longer. As if time had stopped. Now there is only 1 hour and 15 minutes, so that I felt like the night was dying and it was dawn. From hiding place, I could overlooking the tunnel floor. Suddenly, my eyes saw a light. At first, it was just a small light on the stone. Later, on the long rays gradually until becoming a yellow streak, and then suddenly, without noise, such as openings on the floor extends into a hole. A hand appeared, pale as the hands of women, touching in the middle of a small halo. Then one of the large stones, white, overturned sideways, emits a short sound, and a white or square holes appear, prompting a stream of light from lanterns poured into the cellar. Through that hole, a very young child's face slowly rising, putting inquisitive eyes peering around. Then the other guy who rose steadily up until the edge of the hole spleen was knee. Only a moment later, he was standing on the edge of the hole, and put out her hand, pulled up under the name of his accomplices, a man as he is also low, pale face and flaming red hair like fire. "It's okay," he whispered. "You have brought some baguette. So the victory. Jump, Archie, jump off." Holmes dashed out, grabbed the collar new guy that hacked. That guy slipped quickly down the other hole, and I heard the rags over when Jones grabbed his jacket. Light shines straight into him holding handguns, but Kane Holmes has come down hard on his wrist, causing the gun down on the stone floor left. "Futile, John Clay," Holmes said. "He had no one does any more chances." "I know," he replied, sounding basically telling them, "but I believe you have escaped," but he had seen stockings or his cloak. "There are 3 people waiting for him outside the door there," Holmes said. "Ah, so. Looks like you have calculated into place, right? Quite a compliment for him." "Both for him." Holmes answers, hair intentions hung up his assembly very modern and useful results. "Understand." John Clay bowed a round of all 3 of us, and then he quietly followed the detective. "Go. Watson, you see?" Holmes explained as we sat whiskey in Baker Street. "At the beginning, I saw clearly the sole purpose of the association. It is the boss pawnshop her out of the house every day for several hours. What measures can pick any fruit? It's outrageous, but the situation is also difficult to find a better way. This finger is clearly due to the wisdom of Clay devised by her. Flaming red hair of his accomplice's name suggests. 4 tables every week is a very tempting bait for brand owners, but worth much when they are considering stocking thousands. They advertise, then a rogue guy hired temporarily in office, that guy was my boss, encourages applicants, and both work together to find ways how to make sure he was not at home every morning for weeks. Just overheard the story is that he would like to help with half the salary. I understand it now. He must have a strong motivation that inspires him to do with wages subject like that. But how did you guess the motivations of them? The business of our client, he did not how much profits, so in the home he did not have what we have planned price for this, other work and spend so expensive at all. So, obviously what we have elsewhere to find the other. But that's something. I think about the habit or take a picture of him and his assistants to the habits of the guy get under cellar. Basement. The key to everything here. I immediately detect the background. Mysterious man helps another, and discovers that he is facing one of the most ruthless criminals and most daring of London. He was doing something in the basement, a job that takes several hours each day and be done several months to complete. The what? I thought it might just be digging a tunnel to break into a building. It's what I've deduced when visiting the scene. I had surprised him when tapping of his cane down the sidewalk. I want to know, basement leads to the front or rear? Not the front. So I jerk the doorbell, and he makes it came open immediately, just as I had hoped. I hardly looked at his face, his knees are looked new. Sure, he has seen firsthand, both were frayed, his trousers creased and knees where the trash bin. It's traces of digging this much time. Now only one point is not clear, the path that leads to where? I round the corner of the square and saw the City and Suburban Bank with the other pawn shops play back to back. I feel I've done this problem. When he left after the concert, I had to Scotland Yard, and then went to see the chairman of the bank board of directors and I've reaped the results as he did see. But how did you guess is that tonight we will act? I ask. Yet, when we closed the office of the association was when we no longer anything to worry about Mr. Job as Wilson is away or at home. In other words, we've dug another tunnel. But the key is that we must use early accomplishments, because they fear may be detected or the bank will move to other places, the other gold. Saturday is a chance for our convenience than any other day, because we will have the next 2 days to escape. For all these reasons, I expected them to act now tonight. How to deduce his true financial situation, I admired Rang. It just saved me from boredom scenes alone, he just said, just yawned.